Welcome to Great Shot. This is the Great Shot Podcast, a Cracked Racquets and Tennis Channel Podcast Network production. My name is Alex Gruskin. On today's show, we've got another edition of The Deciding Point for all of you listeners, our weekly breakdown of all of the action happening across the Division I men's and women's college tennis world. Of course, here on Tuesday nights, we talk about all the D1 women's action. And once again, what a fantastic weekend of college tennis we were all treated to. Of course, the action started in North Carolina, where the Duke Blue Devils, reminding everyone, we had a bad weekend down in South Florida, but they are back in the game now, earning a victory over NC State, earning a victory over Wake Forest as well, propelling themselves back into that top 8 conversation. Of course, was a tough weekend for the aforementioned NC State Wolfpack. They've been your perennial number 2, number 3 in the country all season long. They suffer a 2-loss weekend that so rarely happens for Coach Earnshaw teams. Do we panic at all? Is this a reassessment of North Carolina State's ceiling? That's something we want to discuss on today's show. Of course, a couple of other things we want to get to. Texas A&M, they keep cruising, dominant performance over Auburn. We talked about this last week. We'll talk about it again. How seriously should we take them as a national contender? Of course, out on the West Coast, things got a little bit funky. Arizona State, arguably the best weekend in program history. Victories over both Stanford and Cal. We want to talk about those results, talk about the pecking order results that will ultimately determine who we see competing in the NCAA tournament, and so much more on today's show. Of course, unfortunately, some of you may have noticed not the greatest audio quality for me today. I apologize from that. You've heard the expression fish out of water. I'm a fish without Daniel Westoff in this household. I am unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, in Michigan this week, visiting my parents, going to have the opportunity to go visit my true family, the Michigan and women's tennis teams, tomorrow as well. So be on the lookout for that content on your various Cracked Racquets channels. But again, as such, internet connection not quite up to the standard you all are used to. If I jump out for a bit, if my voice is a bit ahead of where I am on the screen, I do apologize for that fact. But nevertheless, too much good college tennis. Don't want to miss out on anything. We've got another fantastic show for you all. Oh boy, I wish I could show you the camera in the background. My dad just walked across. I'm not going to say what he was wearing. We'll work on that background cam a bit later. But again, we're going to focus on the college tennis here on today's show. And with that in mind, if you're going to be breaking down all of the action happening in the college tennis world, there's only one person you can turn to help you do just that. Of course, he's a returning champion here on our Cracked Racquets shows, founder of the No Ad, No Problem blog, your co-favorite writer for our website, crackedrackets.com, our West Coast college tennis correspondent. It's our friend, John J. Parsons. Jay, hopefully I got through that intro uninterrupted. If there were interruptions, you got to let me know. How did I sound? Did I get the gist across?
The gist is coming across. I'm happy to step in at any moment. If we drop you, we'll just move on. But no, I hope we have you for the duration of this show. So far, so good, but we'll let you know if anything comes up.
That's all I ever ask. Well, you look splendid as always. Your audio sounds fantastic. And again, busy weekend of West Coast action. So I'm sure you've got plenty of thoughts to share. And again, we're going to go through it all, talk about the teams not only at the top of the rankings, but the meat and potato of that college tennis weekly schedule. Talk about the teams with the most notable results, play a game of good win, bad loss, talk about our rankings, preview the week ahead as well. Of course, the reason we're able to do that every week here on The Deciding Point is because of the support we get from all of you listeners, all of you college tennis fans, all of you coaches, players who consistently tune in, week out, put up with all of Jay and Mai's nonsense. I am immensely grateful for that fact. And of course, we here at Cracked Racquets, so grateful for all of you in the college tennis world who have embraced us as we try to provide the sport the platform we know it deserves. Certainly, you look this week on the Pro Tour, Cam Norrie cracking the top 10 of the ATP rankings. Of course, Danielle Collins has been around that range as well. And you see so many different college players, whether it's Joe Salisbury, former Memphis standout, who I believe has ascended to number 1 in the ATP doubles rankings of late as well. We see so many players in the professional ranks with college ties having success. Of course, if you're looking for a sneak peek into the future, who might those players be? That's something we have the opportunity, obviously, here to highlight. That's why we care about college tennis the way that we do. Of course, again, plenty of results for us to cover here today. And the reason we're able to do that day in, day out is because of the support we get from our friends at both SwingVision and Tourna Tennis. Of course, all of you know SwingVision on the forefront of all technological innovations in tennis artificial intelligence. Of course, as all of you know, if you would like to learn more about the SwingVision app, you can click on the link in the description to this podcast. When you do, you will inevitably want to download the SwingVision app because, of course, you can get free video broken down by metric, broken down by shot selection, et cetera, all on your phone. Of course, you can also get automated line calling and so much more. Again, it is all things artificial intelligence for your tennis. Learn more about them by clicking on the link in the description to this podcast. And, of course, use that promo code CRACK20 when you do inevitably sign up, as you'll get a 14-day pro trial and free $20 discount, on your purchase. Of course, a huge thank you to our friends at Tourna as well. And all of you already know the deal with Tourna. I mean, everyone uses Tourna Grip. Your friends use it. The pros use it. The college players use it. It's because it's the best in the business. It can handle this schwitzing. It can handle your schwitzing as well. I promise. Again, to learn more about the Tourna team, perhaps you'd like to contact them, have them sponsor your college tennis team. If you're a coach, whatever it may be, you can contact the team at Tourna by emailing sales@uniquesports.com. Of course, please let them know that we here at Cracked Racquets sent you. It makes their investment in this podcast worthwhile. Of course, we would greatly appreciate if you let them know we sent you there. But again, contact sales@uniquesports.com to learn more about the Tourna team. And a huge thank you again to our friends at both SwingVision and Tourna for their continued support of this Deciding Point show. With that said, let's talk about the tennis we saw unfold over the past week, Jay, because it was another fantastic week in the college tennis world. The place we get to start is at the top of the ITA rankings, and a team that has perennially been number 2 in the ITA computer poll, number 3 perennially in the Tennis Channel, USTA, and most importantly, Cracked Racquets polls are the NC State Wolfpack, who were maybe the surprise story outside of Oklahoma. Again, if Oklahoma is 1A, NC State is 1B. The only difference between the two teams being that NC State had to play North Carolina in the National Indoor semifinals, Oklahoma on the other side of the draw. They didn't have to see them until the final. But simply put, for an NC State team that brings in a ton of new pieces to work into the mix this year, they've been clicking on all cylinders, whether it's Nell Miller, whether it's Priska Negroho, just all of the pieces they brought in, and they've done it all without Alana Smith. They had lost just one match on the season coming into this weekend, and of course that number balloons to 3 now as NC State drops back-to-back 4-3 matches at home as part of the North Carolina swing. They're knocked off 4-3 by North Carolina. They're knocked off 4-3 by Duke as well. Now, again, let's look big picture first. Duke, outside of one bad weekend, has been a perennial top 10 team this season. Obviously, North Carolina, they've been number 1 from start, in that number 1 conversation from start to now. In a vacuum, each loss is not particularly indicting, but to lose both matches 4-3 at home, Jay, what's your reaction to the heartbreak in Raleigh?
Well, I'll start big picture as well, right? I mean, NC State is a combined 3-44 against UNC and Duke. And so to even in that 1-22 record they have against UNC, they won the first match back in 1999, haven't won a match since. This weekend was actually the second 4-3 match they've ever even played with UNC. So big picture, right? We're talking about a school in the program here that has never been at this stages, right? They have never been week to week a top 3 team, week in, week out, contending for the top spot and facing these Duke and UNCs and giving them these sorts of tests. So I think it's a huge testament, and it's exciting to see both what Oklahoma and NC State have done as programs. With that said, this was a pretty disappointing weekend, right? To lose 4-3 back-to-back at home in both matches that they had a ton of chances in. I thought it was disappointing. I thought they had chances in both matchups. I thought what was disappointing was they won doubles in each of these matchups against Duke and UNC. And then the calculus was the same. They lost at 1, they lost at 2, they lost at 4, they lost at 5. And that's disappointing, particularly that Duke match, just to focus in on that one, right? They were up 3-1 and they lose the final 3 matches, 2 of them 7-6 in the third, the clinch match from Billiken of Duke, 6-4 in the third. So yes, it was super close, but you're also at home up 3-1. You think you can take one of those. So overall, I mean, big picture, impressive that NC State is in this conversation and they're right there with the blue bloods of college tennis. On the flip side, more myopically, disappointing weekend for them.
Sure. I first of all, great use of the word myopic. You would fit in wonderfully in this Gruskin household. B, your point about the doubles, I think if you're looking at a glass half full perspective for NC State, that's the place to start. I think we can agree NC State's got the best doubles point in the country, right? And the fact that I mean, that would be my argument to date, is I have not seen a team impress me more than what NC State has done in doubles this season. And if you want to look at the stats for NC State, who now, again, 19-3 overall, you look for them in doubles, it's laughable. They're 45-8 overall in individual double sets. And with all due respect to Texas A&M, because they would like a seat at the table in this conversation, strength of schedule is why you give the edge to NC State. Because again, to your point, they take the doubles point against Duke. They take the doubles point against North Carolina here this weekend. You look at the national indoors, they take doubles points against Auburn, against North Carolina. Highway robbery for them to take that doubles point against Georgia, but they ultimately did. They got a good doubles point against Wake Forest as well, doubles points against Princeton, Ohio State earlier in the season. This team doesn't lose doubles points, and they're up 1-0 against everyone. And particularly given the absence of Alana Smith, who would be a top 3 singles player if healthy, undeniably. Look at the track record for this team. It definitely provides them some padding. That said, to your point here, this team more broadly, as you're looking for trends here in the season, with all due respect to Nell Miller, who I think on the right day can look as good as anyone, you know, she's 9-7 overall at the 4 singles spot. I think Miller's been good, not great, in coming over from Texas Tech in the singles lineup. Now, she's been exceptional in doubles. And when you look at the totality of her contributions, one of the most significant transfers of the offseason. No denying that. But 9-7 at 4, low-hanging fruit for improvement. All due respect to Amelia Rajecki, who played a really good weekend this weekend. You know, again, she's 7-7 overall at the number 6 single spot. The team's 13-7 overall at 6, which in a vacuum, again, fine, but not exceptional. Then on the right day, Jada Daniels is going to beat anyone. The lefty senior, extraordinarily talented, but I don't think she's a lock at 1. I think the only lock at the number 1 singles spot in the country, there's maybe 2 of them, and it's Emma Navarro, and I would say on the right day, Peyton Stearns. If she plays her best, she's going to beat who's ever across the net for her. With all due respect to Jada Daniel, as good as she is, I wouldn't call her a lock. Now, you look at some of the records beyond that. And I mean, you know, Rensheli is 12-6 at the 2 spot. She's been exceptional. I know she lost to Scotty in 3 sets. We'll get to the Carolina side of this equation in a second. She's been exceptional. Negroho at 12-5 has been ridiculous. Sophie Abrams, 17-3 overall in dual matches this year. She's been ridiculous. There are 4, I used to last year, my big thing was 1-point teams, 2-point teams, 3-point teams, 4-point teams. This team is not a 3-point team, but they're not quite a 4-point team either. They're like a 3.5 because you're going to get doubles. They haven't lost a doubles point all year. You feel like
they have. They've lost a few doubles points. I think
they lose doubles points. Am I blanking here? Have they lost a doubles point?
They have. They lost. I want to say they lost it to
North
Miami.
Carolina. No, they lost it to North Carolina at the National Indoors. And they lost it to Wake Forest.
March 8th.
Yeah. You're right. They've lost 2 doubles points. So, okay, they've lost 2 doubles points. But you feel like they're going to get 1 up on the board there. You feel like they're probably going to get 2 of the 1 through 3 spots, or 2 of the 2 through 4 spots, maybe I should say. But it's like, find me the 4th point against the elite of the elite. I don't know. Again, it's a good discussion to have. Despite these losses, NC State does not fall out of my national title contender tier. Like, I think they're still very much a tier 2 contender with anyone else. You had to win. You beat the Duke match. You lose to North Carolina 4-3. Maybe you're tier 1 contender instead of tier 2. Maybe that's the only difference for this North Carolina State team now, is they're tier 2 instead of tier 1. But they're still as good as any team in the country, despite 2 4-3 losses.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I think last week we were talking about how we felt about Texas's loss to Oklahoma, and I actually felt better about this Texas team. I definitely feel markedly worse about this NC State team after this weekend, even though both of these matches were so close. And the reason is I just didn't see a pathway to winning this match in a way that felt like they were in it to fight to the end. I mean, losing that Duke match was disappointing. The UNC match, a notable lineup decision there to swap Sophie Abrams, who has been very performant at the 5 spot, with Rajecki, who has struggled. So that one, I don't really. It's tough to concede that one. But look, I mean, back to back to back, do I feel confident that Jada Daniel, Renchali, and one of Rajecki or someone else will turn it around? Not particularly, right? Like, can they all click on one day? Sure. But then you turn around the next day, and what does that look like? And I thought this was a good, like, proxy for, or to use your word, a good facsimile for what we're going to see in May when they face off against the top teams. And to do it back to back to back, it's tough to find what points you can trust outside of maybe doubles, Negroho, and Abrams.
Yeah. So again, would you say this is a 3+ team as opposed to, and I apologize, I see my connection here getting a little bit shaky. Jay, give me a thumbs up if you can still hear me, if you don't mind. And I apologize. We're going to leave this in the podcast. Those of you listening in podcast form. Thank you, Jay. Would you say they're a 3+ team then and not a 4?
Yeah. And I think you exactly saw that this weekend,
Yeah,
right? They were on the cusp of 4, but ended up with 3.
See, here's the one glass half full take I will give you off of that, and then we're going to move on to, the teams that actually won these matches. But the glass half full here for NC State, if you're Simon Earnshaw, who is, I think we can both agree, one of our favorite characters in college tennis, just a lovely human being, so intense, so passionate about the sport. I love you, Simon. I want to be clear. Simon, I love you. I would say this to your face. You are Simon. I don't know why I'm addressing him directly. Sorry, Coach Earnshaw. He is an energetic man, right? He is so passionate about the sport. I imagine when you're 19-1, you're like, okay, Simon, we love you. Can we maybe scale it back, the intensity, like 10%? Well, now you've lost twice in a row. To reconsider what we were doing and, re-examine where we're at. I think this is a great thing for Coach Earnshaw. And I do think these two losses are kind of the wake-up call. We're like, all right, we've been coasting by and we've been escaping 4-3. We weren't able to do that this weekend. It's time for us, for lack of a better term, sorry, West, to get our shit together.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I was a little down on this NC State team after this weekend.
Sorry, I didn't mean to address Simon directly.
Yeah. I was a little down on this NC State team coming in. You can probably tell that. And then I listened to an interview that Simon Earnshaw did with who knows, but it was posted on Twitter. And he basically said, like, look, if these matches happen at the end of the season, they sit with you for a very long time. When they happen in the regular season, you got to kind of put them in the rearview mirror and move on. And I thought that was a great attitude. I thought that made a lot of sense. And you can see how this can fuel them for, they still have tough road matches against Virginia. They still have the ACC tournament. Now they know where they need to be, and they know they need to get better if they want to win an ACC tournament and if they want to win a national championship. So ultimately, I think this only helps this team over the next few weeks.
Yeah. For us to end this discussion on NC State. And again, I would point out the fact, and I apologize again, I know you see my screen freezing there, but I hope, Jay, thumbs up if the audio is still good. I see the thumbs up from you. Good. We are still good. 19-3. Like, you look at the ITA rankings, this team's still going to be, oh no, they're number 3 now instead of number 2. Like, you look at the strength of their rankings, they'll be just fine. And they started this year so well, they're going to be top 8. But it's just a reminder that the absence of Alana Smith for like the first time when you're like, man, if we had Smith in one of these 2 matches, do we win one of them? Like, you feel like the answer to that question is yes. But again, I'm not writing off this NC State team. I don't think anyone should. I know you're not either, Jay. They're still very good. On the flip side, Let's do the Carolina piece quickly because I think we can do this the faster of the two. When you look for the Carolina Tar Heels, who not only earned the victory over NC State, they also get a really good win this weekend. I believe it's 5-2 over Wake Forest as well. I mean, look, North Carolina is going to North Carolina, right? And when you look at for what this team was able to accomplish this weekend, yeah, they dropped the doubles point against NC State, but Fiona Crawley, who in my opinion is point in any lineup in college tennis, 6-3, 6-2 win over Nell Miller. If you were at the National Indoors, that was a 3-set match that Miller almost won. That's called revenge on the mind of Fiona Crawley. She's quickly on the board. You look beyond that, there were 5 3-set matches in this match between UNC and NC State. UNC goes 3-2 in those 3 setters. And whether it's the freshman Gillig delivering 7-5 in the 5th, boy, what a win for the freshman. Whether it's, Elizabeth Scotty, who got blitzed by Rensheli in that national indoor match, flipping things, ultimately earning the clinch 6-1 in the 3rd after trailing for the majority of the match. Or to me, and we texted privately about this, the reason NC State loses this match, or the flip side, the reason North Carolina wins this match, Cam Mora had her best weekend of the season. Like pretty unequivocally her best weekend of the season. For her to get the 3-set win over Jada Daniel, extraordinarily impressive. And for her, obviously, in the 5-2 win over Wake Forest, Cam Mora, again, pretty impressive overall in a 10-4 in the 3rd set win over Campana, who's a top 50 player. If Cam Mora is going to be even close to the Cam Mora we saw, and I think she is getting closer and closer to that level, but if she's going to become even close to the lock that we saw her as in the first 2 years of her career, I mean, that is what makes this UNC team elite of the elite. And again, now we're 3.5, 4 months into this season, depending on when you started, beginning of January, mid-January, and they are still undefeated. And that's another 4-3 win for them, this time on the road at number 2 or 3, depending on how you look at it, NC State. The freshman delivered, Crawley delivered. I mean, I know we've had them number 1 forever, but I also think pejoratively, we have not talked about this team as the national title favorite. I think we've both been a little bit hesitant, a little bit reserved in declaring them the unequivocal favorites. I think it's time to do it, Jay. I think we're finally ready to push that pin and finally say this Carolina team is on the level of Carolina teams past, and that this Carolina team can beat anyone. Like, they are that good.
Yeah, a few things to break down there. I mean, first of all, we did not privately text about Mora, so I don't know who you're cheating on me with. But I completely agree with your sentiment. I thought she played really, really well against Jada Daniel. I mean, these both are players where you're like, on the right day, they could both beat anyone. On the wrong day, it could be scary. I just thought she was the more consistent player. I thought Daniel still tried to execute her shots, but didn't actually pull through. I was really impressed with Mora, and I think particularly the stakes of this match as well. I think I've seen a few instances in the past where I'm not sure I fully trusted Mora down the home stretch. Kind of the NCAA match against Pepperdine comes to mind, and she pulled out here, and they absolutely needed her to do that. So I was really impressed with her weekend. I think
that might be the best win, by the way, Mora's had since the 2020 season. Like, honest to God.
Well, she did get the win over Hamner this season.
True.
So that was pretty good.
Yeah. But I'm talking about context.
Context.
Being key.
I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Right. And she hung tough at indoors, right? She had a lot of unfinished matches.
She played better and better with every passing match at the indoors. But this is the first time she said, no. We needed a Mora point on the board, and I'm going to give it to you.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was huge for them. And I totally agree with you that, like, if that continues, that's going to be dangerous for this UNC team. But I think ultimately, whether it was Scotty Tangulig, who, I mean, Rajecki threw the kitchen sink at her and she was able to fend that off, or Crawley, this just felt like a very seasoned performance. And I know we talked a lot about how new this nucleus was of this UNC team, but felt like it was like the UNC gods who shepherded this team through this match. And just in terms of, like, some of them had been there before. This was a new nucleus on the NC State team. They pulled through in a way that a championship winning team would pull through this match on the road. I thought it was super impressive from them.
We're going to do an award show at the end of the year. I'm telling you now, I'm telling super producer Daniel Westoff now, where we're going to name a season MVP who is the most valuable player in college tennis. It's Fiona Crawley. Straight set win over Anna Bryland, straight set win over Nell Miller as well. I thought Yarlagadda played really well against Wake Forest, straight set wins over Killingsworth. That's pretty impressive. Riley Tran got a really good win over Anna Campana of Wake Forest in that Wake Forest dual match as well. And you look for North Carolina, who takes the doubles point in that Wake Forest match against, a really good Wake team in doubles. Yeah, they've just got pieces. It's like they may have lost the doubles point to NC State, but North Carolina is a top 10 doubles point. And I like that they've continued to play around with their teams. And it does feel like Crawley and Scotty is what we're going with at the number 1 spot. But I like that they split Sanford and Tran, and they're trying Mora and Sanford and Tangillig and Tran and just mixing in different pieces. That is the one thing as yes, this team, and Scotty doesn't play against Wake Forest. She comes off the bench to get a 3-set win. Her health is, if she's not healthy, it's a completely different ball game come the NCAA tournament. If she stays this healthy, they are your favorites. Like, again, they've got depth. They've got, we talk about NC State being a 3+ team. North Carolina's a 4+ team. Like, you name the flight, and I think if they're healthy, they can win at every single position. Like, even on the right day, Cam Mora can beat Emma Navarro, or at the very least not lose to Emma Navarro. That's just what she does. She makes you uncomfortable. North Carolina's starting to click. I think it's finally time to put them on a tier of their own, although, again, it's really hard to do that when Oklahoma was up up doubles in 4 first sets at the National Indoors, and I was freaking there, and I was like, okay, Oklahoma's clearly on the level. I don't know. I'm really conflicted, Jay. I mean, again, final words on North Carolina go to you.
Well, I will say someone asked me this question on this podcast. I'm not sure who, whether UNC was like the unequivocal favorite. And I believe I had them as 1A and Oklahoma and NC State as 1B. It sounds like what I'm hearing is maybe that felt like a pretty good take.
Well, first of all, I want to be clear. When you said someone on this podcast told me, I thought, one of our YouTube viewers sent in a question to Jay, and he saw it before I did. And now I realize you're talking about me. And I'm like, oh, that's good.
Yes. Yeah. But I agree. Yeah. I think, look, they're undefeated. They've beaten literally everybody this season. So there's no way not to, other than the NCAA curse, right? Yeah. Which continues to loom large over this UNC team.
Your words, not mine. With that said, let's talk about the last component of this little quad we had. And that's, of course, the Duke Blue Devils, who had a horrible weekend in Florida. And you look for them, again, to drop. I don't think there's any shame in losing a match to Miami. But to lose to Florida State, after Florida State played only 5 people, didn't have a full lineup, and you still lose that match for this Duke team to respond the way they did. This is why I'm so angry I let you talk me into crossing them off last weekend, because on the right day, Drummy, 4-1 over Jada Daniel. Chloe Beck, 7-6 over the third over Ren Shelley. Again, you feel as good about her as anyone else out there. Now, it is crazy that they dropped the doubles point and still won this match, but you do always feel like one of the freshmen, whether it's Coleman or Jackson, depending on the day. And this day it was Ellie Coleman, 7-6 in the third victory. And then,
note they didn't have Jackson.
Yeah, who was out precisely, exactly. And so again, makes this win more impressive.
Yep.
I mean, Billiken has struggled mightily in singles over the past 2 years. For her to get this win over Nell Miller, 6-4 in the third set, what a victory for Billiken. And then again, Duke, it's not as though this was a one-off. It's not as though they let this drag them and then they go play Wake Forest and they're all arrogant and they lose that match. No, it's another hard-fought match for them. Another match where, again, Duke takes the doubles point. And with that, it's back at 2 again. This time, back at 2, it's Amaru at 6, and this time it's Kelly Chen who delivers at 3. I don't feel great about anyone in the Duke lineup right now except for Chloe Beck, but I feel pretty good about everyone. And again, I shouldn't have let you talk me into crossing them off, because I just think this team's got chops. Like, they've just got big match chops.
They definitely do, but do they have 3 big match chops, right? Because
or 4 even, if you
right,
Sweet
because
16.
That's, I mean, when we talk about cross-offs, we'll get there later, but I think your definition is like on any given day, but that's not actually what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about doing that on consecutive days. So,
I make it a point to make sure we never know exactly what we're talking about. That way there's always plausible deniability.
Little ambiguity.
Yeah, so, exactly.
I mean, overall, I thought the Duke performance, again, without Emma Jackson, and just to win those matches, I mean, Billiken's actually been really solid for them this season. The most impressive victory for me was Ellie Coleman at 7-6
Yes.
in the third. She, in particular, has struggled this year as a freshman in singles. What a great victory for her. I mean, we talked about the disappointment on the NC State side to do what Duke did, down 1-3 and take three matches, 2-7-6 in the third, 1-6-4 in the third. Just a really incredible performance for them. Who again shows you that on any given day they have the talent, to find those four victories.
Where do you think Wake Forest goes? Duke, NC State, or North Carolina for the regional? Because I think they probably end up at Duke, just given, again, regionally, geographically, it makes the most sense. And I think, unfortunately, Wake Forest, who's 12-8 overall and 1-4 in 4-3 matches, which include 4-3 losses to Tennessee, to Miami, to at NC State, a 4-3 loss, obviously, this weekend against Duke as well. I think this team is extraordinarily capable. Like when the NCAA tournament draw comes out, we will name Wake Forest as dangerous of a number 2 seed in the region, and whoever their host is will be on upset alert. Like, I think this Wake Forest team is really good, and that's why I thought it was just as impressive for Duke to bounce back and get the 4-3 victory on the road and to take the doubles point over a Wake Forest team that has prided itself in its doubles capability. Man, I mean, this ACC is turning in pretty good, right? Like, you look for NC State, and Scotty B points this out. I believe they've got Virginia up next. Yep. They could lose 3 or 4 matches in conference play and not feel particularly poorly about any of their losses. ACC, it's not as good as it was last year, but it's still the best conference in the country.
Yeah. I don't know if it's not as good as it was last year.
Well, I think it's deeper. Like, I should say it's not as top heavy.
Remains to be seen, I think.
Okay, good. Push back, Jay.
I mean, UNC has 2 of the top 3 teams. Sorry, the ACC has 2 of the top 3 teams. That's pretty top heavy.
Yeah, but last year it did too. Like, I'm saying, but yeah, NC State made the semifinals. 2 of the top 4.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
they weren't ranked that high.
All right, well, guess what? Unless it's a North Carolina NC State final, it's like it's the same ending. We don't play out the third. Anyways, this is off topic. You're right. Point being, I think the ACC is still quite solid, and obviously this weekend of results indicative of that. But again, 0-2 for NC State and Wake Forest, your hosts, as North Carolina and Duke go on the road and earn road victories. 4-0 weekend for Tobacco Road, and obviously they will appreciate that fact given where the NCAA men's championship ended yesterday for the Carolina basketball team. Don't worry, you can celebrate your North Carolina women's tennis team, who is number 1 in the country. So I say to all, because I'm back in Ann Arbor this week, everyone's like, talking Michigan basketball, these things. I'm like, guys, Tennis Channel poll is going to have us number 2, like in men's tennis. I was like, what? You're talking about the wrong things here. With all of that said, we'll save the men's discussion for Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time here on our Crack Racquets YouTube channel. Let's move on now to our next storyline. And I know that's a lot of time on that quad, but it was a fascinating quad, obviously, in North Carolina. We'll move a little quicker here now as we've still got plenty of action to discuss. Texas A&M. Dominant victory. And we had this match on our broadcast. It was over like that. Yeah. And you look for Texas A&M, who takes the doubles points, straight set victories as well in their 3 singles wins. And I think they ultimately took 4 first sets in their match over Auburn as well. May have even been 5. I'll look that up in a second. But comfortable victory over Auburn. They are now comfortably on top of the SEC standings. And obviously they're your only undefeated team left in the SEC, as well as they've now knocked off Auburn. You look right now at the projected rankings. Texas A&M currently number 7, projected to be number 5 in tomorrow's ITA rankings. I mean, simply put, Jay, again, you're welcome. And 6-1 over Bama was the team's other win this weekend. Are you a believer yet? Like, are they tier 2? Are they tier 1? Where are you with this A&M team?
Well, to use your terms, I think there is a tier 1, a tier 1A, and a tier 2. Tier 1 is UNC, tier 1A is Oklahoma, and Texas A&M is in tier 2 with NC State, and possibly a few others, but we'll get there. Okay. I mean, certainly A&M is absolutely a contender. They continue to perform extremely well with these big matches. You talk about UNC up and down the lineup. You feel pretty good about every single position. Exact same can probably be said for Texas A&M and another school that has a very strong doubles point. So, I mean, they're clicking at the right time, and it's kind of going to be smooth sailing for them until the end of the SEC tournament, and then we'll see them in the NCAA tournament. It's very possible they're like 30-1 by the time we get to the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, this team is ridiculously talented, and we mentioned the doubles numbers for NC State. You know who hasn't dropped a doubles point all year long? Actually hasn't. It's Texas A&M, who, again, they've lost one match. It came on the heels of a third set breaker against Cal at the National Indoors. They have not lost since. I also think we would all agree Texas A&M predominantly considered an outdoor team, right?
I mean, they don't even have indoor courts.
That's what I'm saying. And when you watch this team play, and again, on Friday, just dominant in their victory, 7-0 over Auburn, you look for this team. Tatiana Makarova, who's undefeated. She is just rolling through people. And again, straight set victory for her over Arsenault. Gianna Pilette, the freshman, 1-2 victory over a very much informed Georgie Axon, JC Goldsmith. Ultimately, the middle of the lineup where Auburn's been great, and ultimately it's the freshman Stoyana, the senior Goldsmith earning wins. But like Brandstein, 2-1 over Ovunk. If she's going to play this well, they are a top tier contender. Katya Townsend returning to health, 2-5 over a Yu Chen, who's been as good at the number 6 single spot as any player, maybe not named Annika Yarlagata in the country. Or a mistaker, the touchdown maker. Should have mentioned her as well. Like Katya Townsend's on that level as a 6 singles player. She's finally getting healthy. 2-5 over Yu Chen. I mean, this team has, again, if they win the matches they're supposed to win, they will be your number 1 seed in the SEC. And I think with this win over Auburn now, they've come pretty close to clinching themselves a top 8 seed for the NCAA tournament. I also think pejoratively now, we will refer to this team unambiguously as a top 8 team.
Yeah, why pejoratively?
Because, I mean, I don't know ranking wise, like if they're going to actually get up there, because I do think there's some other teams.
5 next week, right? 5 tomorrow.
Yeah, but I'm saying you still get Pepperdine still has Pepperdine still got the Oklahoma State matches, right? So they still got a shot to work their way back up. We just spent all this time talking about the ACC teams. Let's say Duke does go on a run, or NC State continues their winning ways, and Oklahoma is going to box them out. If Texas gets a win over Oklahoma, let's say at the Big 12 championships, they've done enough elsewhere that they could box Texas A&M out as well. I say pejoratively because I still don't think, short of them running the table in the SEC tournament, which they could do, but I've told you, the more I watch Georgia play, the more I admit you were right about them coming into the season, and they are that good. I just still don't think, despite all of the success, that's why I say pejoratively, because I think numbers-wise, it's not a lock yet.
That's fair.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, cool. And it could not be.
With that in mind, any takeaway from respect? Now, I think Adeline Flack, again, just like they both went to 3 sets. They were both right there with their opponents. Unfortunately, the match was just already clinched at the time those matches finished. And I think motivation is too arbitrary of a concept to ever try to measure, but I'm not going to hold a loss against someone whose team had already lost the dual match. Auburn's a top 16 team, and I think they still have Georgia on the schedule. And that becomes a fascinating matchup between those two schools. I do not have Auburn in tier 1 or 2, though. I don't even know if they're a tier 3 school.
Yeah, you cut out a little bit for you, so I'm assuming the question for me. So I assume the question is about Auburn and kind of where they are. I agree with you. I've never really believed that they were a top 8 team. I think they were certainly a top 16 team. Yes. I think they're much more in the 12 through 16 range. So, it's disappointing to get swept, right? That's never fun. But like the strength of their lineup did push Texas A&M to 3 set matches. And that
Arsenault match was really good at number 2. Like she lost in straights, but that was as well as anyone's played Makarova.
Yeah, exactly. It was close, and Makarova's been dominant. So, I mean, they still have a few more matches on the schedule, like you mentioned. They still have Georgia, but yeah, I mean, this Auburn team is still having a season, in one of the better seasons in program history. So it's still nothing to be ashamed of to lose to Texas A&M, who's now ascending very quickly.
They're really good everywhere. Ovunk is probably their weakest flight, and she's a top 70 player in the country who on the right day is going to look as good as anyone. I really like this team. I think they are pretty definitively the 3rd best team in the SEC. I think A&M, Georgia, A&M obviously just beat them 7-0. I think Georgia, eye test-wise, there's just a little bit more flash in their lineup, and that top 3 of Ma, Riasco, Vietnamino, again, my rankings perspective, from a pedigree perspective, certainly a bit more sex appeal than what you see from a resume perspective for Auburn. At the same time, Auburn's really good at doubles. Not great, but really solid at doubles, just foundationally good at all three flights. And again, I thought they played A&M pretty close in the doubles, and credit to Ovunk and Arsenault, who earned a 6-3 victory over Makarova and Goldsmith, who I think had lost one match in dual match play coming into that one. So that's their second loss of the season. Auburn's better than Florida, and I know the results say that, but Auburn is, just eye test wise, they have more options there. And again, let's say Auburn's your 9 seed, and on the back of this past weekend, Duke is your 8 seed. Woo! That's a fun round of 16. That's a really, really good matchup. And I do think this Auburn team absolutely has quarterfinals in them, but to win 3 matches consecutively, let alone 4 against top 16 opponents, I just don't think this group has quite enough flash to do that.
Yeah, it's not happening.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. Yeah. They're that's a cross off I don't regret, respectfully, in terms of winning the national championship. But again, Coach Caroline Lilly has this group ready to go. They fight extraordinarily hard. They're a really fun team to watch. And so just keep your eyes on the Auburn Tigers. Again, with that said, I want to move on here. I know we've spent a lot of time on some of these teams, and certainly these were the most relevant results, were the first ones we talked about here, the most pressing for us to lead the show with. But the most enjoyable results for us to talk about come via Arizona State, who had a weekend of weekends as they knock off both Stanford and Cal. First ever win over both programs in the same season in school history. Number 30 Arizona State now projected in the latest rankings to fly all the way up to the number 20 spot in the ITA rankings. And again, that now all of a sudden puts them in top 16 sort of range. And again, the Cal roller coaster continues. Stanford, I think it's a year early, probably, for them. I don't think this is the year they're going to win a national championship. We just don't see Stanford teams lose matches like this that go on to win NCAA titles, and this sort of stuff has happened too frequently. But let's talk about Arizona State and the Sun Devils, who, if memory serves me correctly, Jay, someone on this show may have said, hey, I don't know if they're particularly great, but this Arizona State team is frisky. And that friskiness manifested itself this weekend.
I know. Westhoff really knows his tennis.
I know. He knows his stuff so well.
No, it absolutely did, right? And I will be honest, I did not see this coming at all.
When I said frisky, I was like, 4-3 loss. Like, don't be shocked if it comes down to a Connie Ma win at 1. And it's like, no. We're going to beat both these teams.
Yeah, particularly a Cal team that was just coming off that win over Pepperdine, right? And, they also dropped doubles against that Cal team, and they took 4 singles matches. Now, just a note, Cal was without Rosenquist, who has been very strong for them in kind of the middle of the lineup. But still, what an incredible performance from ASU to get 4 singles, to get the clinch at number 4 singles from Callie Jankowski in her senior year, I believe. Just a really impressive performance against Cal. And you kind of thought, okay, well, this Cal team, with the real Cal, please stand up. It's just been like, it has been week to week. It's truly been different. I then thought like, okay, well, the magic is going to wear off against Stanford, but no. And the Stanford match, didn't even particularly feel close. They took a pretty decisive dubs point, and then they got the match at 1, 3, and 4, and that was ball game.
You ready to play a fun game? It's a new game here. We're going to call it In the Vacuum, which we're going to get a sound effect for moving forward. And let's take all of the matches Arizona State has lost this season, and let's examine them in a vacuum here, because obviously that's a phrase I've been using quite frequently of late on this show. 4-3 loss to Auburn at the kickoff weekend, a match that was one of the most fascinating matches of the kickoff weekend, if you can remember that far back in the UCF regional. Auburn wins that match 4-3. We just spent a segment talking about them as a 12-16 team. Not a bad loss, correct?
Correct.
Okay, we keep moving. 4-0 at Oklahoma State. Now, 4-0 you never like, but at Oklahoma State, I don't think that's a bad loss.
No, not a bad loss.
Yeah, 4-3 against Washington at home. Not a great loss because it's a home match, but not a bad loss.
No, Washington's been solid.
4-1 at USC, 4-1 at UCLA. Now, you could argue the USC match, to lose it 4-1 to that iteration of USC, which was just riding the struggle bus as hard as possible at that point of the year. that was almost the turning point, the inflection point for this USC team, which has since subsequently gone on to earn some very nice victories. And I will tell you what, no one was happier to see these results this weekend than Coach Swain and USC, who now very much find themselves back in the top 16 hunt. 4-3 at Oregon's the only bad one. Like, that's the only one, and it's still a 4-3 road loss in conference play. Like, they're just freaking good.
Yeah, and Oregon's a really tough place to play. Yeah. So, no, I mean, we've talked about Arizona State this year, right? They have been close. And if you knock on the door enough, like, the door is going to open. But yeah, I mean, they were 1-4 in Pac-12 play coming into this weekend. And it paid off. So it was just a really good performance from the Sun Devils.
No, it was really fun, again, to watch. And, for all of these players, I think, for all these players to be able to provide this result for their coach. And, for those of you who don't, what was it? 400 wins, 300 wins, 500 wins? I forget what the exact metric was, but it was some sort of significant marker for Arizona State. And obviously
for Coach McInerney.
Yeah. Who I am desperately in pursuit of to try and get on the podcast this week. I just got to work for my Arizona State.
I think she's over the 500 mark.
Yeah, I remember seeing a tweet that this was some sort of significant win for her. And so, if you don't mind,
beating
Jay,
Cal and Stanford in the same season.
Yeah, pretty freaking cool. I agree, but I feel like it was 500. I feel like that's what it said. It was Sheila McInerney. Let me look here. You look at the career record. She was at. Unclear. All right, we have been knowing this 10%. I don't know. Point being, she has 540 wins. So yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I just looked at this. She's over the 500 mark.
Maybe it was 550. Maybe that's what it was. It was the 550th win or something crazy like that. The point is, Jay, don't distract me here. The point is, Jay, they're frisky. And you look at what's left on the schedule for this Arizona State team now. Obviously, we've still got conference tournaments everywhere, and that helps everyone. But you look for them now. They got at Colorado, a very juicy matchup at Utah, then Arizona at home. What are they, semifinals at least? If they make the finals of the conference tournament, I think they're a top 16 seed. If they semifinals, it'll be close.
Yeah, I think they would have to final or maybe even win, to be honest, because the problem is that all of these Pac-12 teams are in that 15 to 20 range.
So
right
this
now.
was going to be my question. This is for you, Scotty, because I know you love the over-unders. Over-under 1.5 Pac-12 teams as top 16 teams, top 16 seeds.
Are we waiting for Scotty B to respond?
Yeah, no, I want your response.
Okay. I'm going to go over. I think it's over. I think UCLA looks like they're in okay position despite, not having a lot of victories. And look, the reality is this is one of Stanford, USC, Arizona State. Someone's going deep in that Pac-12 tournament. Stanford still has the Cal victory. Cal is going to be in there just based on their resume with basically those two Pepperdine wins. So it's over under 1.5. It's definitely over.
Yeah, that's why you bake in Cal, just the wins they have, 2 over Pepperdine. You feel like that alone is going to make you top 16. You ready for these numbers, though? Cal right now, I'm going projected ranking. Shout out to you, Chris Halliors, and College Tennis Ranks website. It's the best tool you're going to find as a college tennis fan. Cal, 9th. UCLA, 16th. 550 wins. Thank you, Dendalou, the Yankee. I knew it was something significant. UCLA.
That was such a brag over Lily Faroud's 500, by the way.
Okay.
The on-court win wasn't enough.
You know what that tweet was? That's called tennis Twitter pettiness, baby. We don't get enough of it in college tennis. Shout out to you, Arizona State. First of all, give that SID a raise. That's just good business. We agree. And we're making fun of it, but in the right ways. UCLA, 16, border. Stanford, 17, border. USC, 18, border. Arizona State, 20 in the projected rankings, border. Then you have a Washington team at 28 and my new Pac-12 frisky team, Oregon, who is just extraordinarily frisky. And we'll talk about them a little bit later as we go through good win, bad loss. The thing is, if Cal wins the Pac-12 tournament, I'm going to say under, and I'm going to say they're the only one. If UCLA wins the Pac-12, if it's a non-Cal winner, it'll be over. Yes.
Well, No, because I think Stanford could beat Cal in the regular season,
Oh, that's
lose in
another
the
good point.
finals, right? So like you just mentioned, like the whole thing about this top 16 is like who's behind you,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Well, if the people behind you are still in the Pac-12 and all we need is one Pac-12, like someone's getting in.
Yeah.
So I think two is the number. It wouldn't even surprise me to see three.
Okay, I like it. Again, Pac-12, things heating up, and you're a West Coast correspondent, so you'll have to keep us in the loop of what's going down. I do appreciate there's someone out there who noticed the menorah over my left shoulder, over my right shoulder. Excuse me. Thank you for noticing it. It is a little decorative add-on here as I am at my parents' house. But with that in mind, let's move on to the best of the rest. Let's move on to a game of good win, bad loss before we get to our rankings, before we get to our week ahead. Let's start with Ohio State. 4-3 win over the Big Ten. They solidify control of the conference, and ultimately they earn 3 set wins at the 4-5 spot now. I love you, Ronnie. I love you, Wolverines. God, are we bad at doubles? I mean, oh my God. This Michigan team, when they figure out how to win a doubles point, they might be the best team in the country because they're finding 4 singles wins all the time. But, for this Michigan team, which had their chances, certainly Serdon and Fliegner were right there at the end of the matches at 4-5, but Ohio State knocks them off. Now they still have to play Northwestern, who's also undefeated in conference play. And I don't want to say all in on the Wildcats, but 2024 Alex Gruskin is going to predict some nasty things for Northwestern because I think this core of Shusharina, Pratt, and Justine Leong can do some special things as a group. That said, Ohio State has solidified control and their grip on the conference. You look for Ohio State, currently 7 in the projected rankings. Now, again, you look at the Big Ten, there's some depth there. If depth means there's a lot of teams ranked 45 to 65, but finding top, notch wins is going to be pretty tough for the Buckeyes the rest of the way. Where are you at with Ohio State and their race for the top 8?
I mean, they're going to be holding on for dear life. They're going to have a lot of teams that are looking to pass them. There's just not the wins on the schedule.
It's really hard. Michigan not making the indoors kills them, or Northwestern too, by the way.
Yeah, that's one thing, but not being that good is another.
But why I say it is because, I disagree. I think Michigan's. If Michigan played Florida right now, are you definitively picking Florida?
Outdoors, probably.
Okay, that's a fair counterpoint to make. Here would be my argument: is I don't think Michigan's that far off from a Florida. The difference being Michigan just didn't even get a chance at the indoors to earn one of those 3 wins, let alone any. And then
but Michigan's ranked,
who wasn't there. Yeah,
where they probably should be.
I think if they get even one, here's the difference. If they get one win at the national indoors, then they're a top 20 team. And if you throw that win in together with Cal, they're going to stay in the top 20. The difference being for Ohio State now, there are no top 20 teams in the Big Ten outside of them. I mean, you look right now, Michigan's 19, but projected to drop to 22, and Northwestern 39, projected to rise to 38. It's just the idea of we could get 2 top 20 wins over a team in our conference. And because Michigan did not make the indoors, it kind of screws Ohio State too.
That's fair. Yeah,
that's my argument.
Yeah, Michigan had been, ranked fairly well within that 16 through 20 range. Like dropping out of the top 20 is tough. But yeah, that's the challenge with being in the Big Ten, right? Is, if you get locked out of the indoors, there's just not the teams, there's not the depth. And even though these other conferences, like their depth is at least in like the 30s and 40s. So yeah, I thought it was good win for Ohio State to fend off Michigan. They're still without Dorme, which is starting to get concerning, and we'll probably see them slip out of the top 8.
Well, I'm going to give a counter. I kind of like that they've played around with their doubles. I like these new pairings we're seeing. I like mixing things around, and I know this weekend there's a lot of Boulay, Allen, and but I kind of like. I don't know. I like Coach Schaub experimenting with this group. I enjoy it, particularly where they're at in conference play. It's just like, hey, we know our doubles is okay, but we had a bad national indoors in doubles. This is something we need to focus on. And I like that she's not afraid to experiment with the pairings here while this team has some margin, some cushion in Big Ten play.
I think you just like it because it did give Michigan a better chance at winning doubles. But they had 3 solid teams. They weren't finding the doubles wins, but they still had 3 teams. It's been a struggle mixing these teams up. But
for the record, super producer Daniel Westoff and I, because we have our Big Ten red zones every Sunday, Big Ten cross court coverage, excuse me. We just start in on the screen. I just say, hey, Michigan's down 1-0. Like, don't worry. Like, just, you can put one on the point for the other. I did not feel we were going to win the doubles, but again, good win for Ohio State. Great win for the Illinois women, who knock off Nebraska, making that push for that number 5 spot in the Big Ten. Now, again, I talked about this on our Big Ten-centric podcast, which you can go hear from last week on the Great Shot podcast feed. There will be a new iteration, obviously, this week as well. 3 teams right now in both the men's and women's fields in for the Big Ten Conference. That is brutal. You look at it, Ohio State, the top 8 seed right now. Obviously, they're getting into the tournament. Michigan's getting into the tournament. Northwestern's 11-5. They're currently ranked number 37. Now, I'll say this. They are a top 40 team. Like, again, eye test wise, I think this team's really good. I think they play a really sound foundational doubles. And again, I just think they have options everywhere. I think it's like Auburn is to Texas A&M what Northwestern is to Auburn, if that makes sense to you, just in terms of the scales. Like, it's like if Auburn is 85% of A&M, Northwestern is 85% of Auburn. Really solid everywhere. No outstanding spots anywhere. After that, 12-7 Wisconsin, who's earned a lot of good wins over conference foes and, beaten the Minnesotas of the world, the Marylands of the world, the teams they need to beat to be in this position. They're at 47. Again, watch Wisconsin play. They're a top 40 team. I think they belong in the NCAA tournament, but man, it's going to be tough. Wisconsin 47, Illinois 50 at 12-6, Nebraska's 10-8 overall. They're 58, Minnesota 14-7. They're 61, Maryland 13-4 overall. They're number 69. Now, I actually think a team that belongs in that group is Penn State, who's 8-9 overall, ranked number 80, just played a really tough schedule at the start of the season. I will say this, the Big Ten women, there actually is a lot of depth there. Like, I think all of these teams, Wisconsin, Illinois, Nebraska, Minnesota, Maryland, Michigan State, Penn State, I would even throw Purdue in there as well. I think they're all frisky. Now, I apologize to Iowa fans who are going to get mad at me. Obviously, if you have Alexa Noel, it's a completely different story for the season, because I do think the Pashamira and one of the Sams, just like there are some options on that Iowa roster. But man, Illinois getting the victories they did, and I believe they knock off Nebraska this weekend. Just a massive win for the Illini. Yeah, they knock off Nebraska and Iowa to keep themselves alive in that NCAA tournament hunt. I like this Illinois team. Like, they're not bad.
No, and this was a good win for Illinois, right? 4-3 win, clinched at number 3 singles. So it was a much needed win if they still wanted to keep the hopes alive of the NCAA tournament, which, again, for a lot of those teams you mentioned, is unfortunately out of reach. I don't know if the Big Ten is going to get 5 teams. Seems like they'll be lucky if they get 4, but they also kind of knocked Nebraska out, right? You've been talking about them this season. That was probably the nail in their coffin, unfortunately.
You guess who the 5th highest ranked Big Ten men's team is right now? Just for fun.
Michigan, Ohio State, Northwestern, 5th highest.
Yeah, or 5th and 6th. Can you name 4, 5, 6? Just to have some fun, a little crossover talk here. Because the Big Ten men's conference, and I love you, Big Ten coaches. Oh my God, is it atrocious this season? Like, it is brutally bad. So you ready to hear it?
Well, is Illinois even in that?
9-11, they're 4th overall, 53 in the rankings. Then comes 8-8 Wisconsin, number 62 in the rankings, who earned a critical 4-3 victory on Saturday over 5 and 13th, but 6th highest ranked in the Big Ten, Nebraska, at 81. Yeah, that's the sort of year this is in the Midwest and for the Big Ten men. But on the flip side, again, for the Big Ten women, there is some depth there, and there are some teams in the hunt, and that makes all of these mid-tier matches that much more important. Really impressive victory for the Illini to advance. Again, let's move on here, and we can go a little bit quicker if you'd like. Georgia bounces back after the A&M loss with a couple of nice wins over SEC foes. I told you this. Every time I watch Georgia play, I am more and more impressed with what they're able to do. When you look for Georgia this past weekend, 6-1 win over a very good Arkansas team, 6-1 win over Missouri as well. Villanova wins in both. I still think Hamner, Villanova, Riasco, Tangillig belongs in that conversation. Like, again, these Georgia freshmen have just delivered the goods. I think this Georgia team's tier 2.
Yeah, they could be. It would not surprise me to see them turn around that A&M match in the SEC tournament. They also got the win over Georgia Tech, midweek performance, which I thought was a good win.
A rising Georgia Tech team.
Absolutely rising from the start of the season. So, that's just a good win to bank in the kind of the 7, 8, 9 slots. But they look really good on most days. It really was just that A&M match that, if a few things go differently, we're not talking about a 7-0 sweep. We're talking about 5-2, and it looked pretty close. But ultimately, I think they'll get another shot in the SEC tournament.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. So again, we can move on beyond them. Iowa State. How about the Cyclones? I assume you were part of the generation. She moves that body like a cyclone, and she makes me want to do it all night long. Hey, Shorty got.
I do know that song.
Yes. Class. Yeah, great song. Anyways, these Cyclones, how about this? Highest ranked win in program history. And you look for Iowa State to go on the Kansas swing and to beat both Kansas State, who's a top 55 team, to beat Kansas as well, who I've talked about just about every week as the leaders of the all Frisky team, like here in college tennis in 2022. We said at the start of this season, look out for Iowa State. And, Scotty B, who was asking and says, now the battle for fourth place in the Big 12 might be decided this weekend. He's on to something. I mean, the Cyclones made a move here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, they came into that weekend, a few weekends back, still undefeated on the season. They've struggled a little bit since, played some tough matches, but this is a great victory for this team. They're settling in right after kind of having a late start due to some health issues. So it was great to see, always good to see programs making history, particularly a program that very much has been on the rise.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And again, it's a really good win for Iowa State, who, they're not going to be top 16. There's just not enough left on the board, barring some miraculous run at the Big 12 tournament. But yeah, you look for them, whether it's at the number 2 spot, obviously Tessa Pornakla, we know how good she is, but just across the board, I think there's some depth to this group as well. And I just like, I just like, again, all their flights. I think there's a lot of play there. And I would put them in that same category of, in the analogy, they are to Auburn what Auburn is to Texas A&M. I just think this Iowa State team, there's no definitive weaknesses in the lineup, and so they're just going to be frisky the rest of the year. But you look beyond that, you're our West Coast correspondent. Let's go on a West Coast swing. You look for USC and UCLA, 4-0 over the Washingtons, in particular for USC to escape 4-3 against Washington State and to drop the doubles point in both of their matches, yet end up with 2 victories. We obviously had the Trojans today on our Cracked Racquets broadcast, and to have the chance to see some of these, to see Naomi Chung back on court and healthy, you can just tell right away what a difference that's going to make. I think Aaron Cayetano, the junior, slowly starting to play some better tennis. Selma Ewing slowly starting to play some better tennis. Is USC back? Like, have we gone full circle here?
Well, I don't know if they're back, because I'm not sure they ever will be. I think maybe it's not quite going to be at the level we maybe thought it was going to be coming into the season. So back is tough, but look, they're playing so much better, right? And they escaped that Washington State match, my goodness. And then they get a really good win over Washington. I will say, I do think Cayetano is back, right? She was really struggling to start the season. Look, is she playing like the number 1 player in the country? No. Is she playing like a top 10, top 15 player? Yeah, she's back, right? The win over Yepifanova, she's on a roll now. So, overall, I think that's a crucial piece for them. Getting Naomi Chung back, there's pieces here. And if they can figure out doubles, they're going to be a very strong number 2 seed.
Yeah. And by the way, this is so random, but I was looking at the, I guess it's not that random given the topic. I'm looking at the UTRs right now for the Pac-12. UCLA Power 6 UTR still number 1, and they're still, I believe, a top 15 Power 6 UTR in the country right now. Stanford's 2, Cal's 3, USC's 4. Then there's a massive dip, and all those teams, by the way, are within 0.61 UTR points, so about 0.1 per spot from UCLA to USC. Shows how thin the margins are. Then there's a bit of a dip to the Arizona State, Washington, 61-62 power 6 tier. Then Arizona, Oregon, Colorado, Utah, all bunched up. All teams that have had pretty solid results here on the season. Point being, I still have no idea what to make of the Bruins. Like, if UCLA is the team with the most questions surrounding it as we head to the final month, half month, whatever, of the regular season, right? Like, I don't know if this team's going to make this. This team is just as likely in my head to lose round of 32 as they are to make the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and it didn't help we didn't see them for like 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Just as they were starting to hit their stride. But I actually thought this was a good weekend for them to kind of, I mean, they could have very easily lost to Washington after, not having played for a few weeks. So this did tell me they are a top 16 caliber team at this moment. What I do not know is, are they a top 8 caliber team? I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. No, again, I agree with you. It's like I still don't know about this UCLA team, and so again, we're watching them extraordinarily closely. We haven't led a single segment, I don't think, a show with a UCLA segment since they lost to Washington in the kickoff weekend. It's like that's our one UCLA really experience this year, and like they've still got Abby Forbes, they've still got Alicia Bolton, Avagramov can play. I know they're working in some new pieces, but like, I just don't know. I have no definitive take about UCLA, and perhaps that is indicative, again, of the season they have had as much as anything. With that in mind, let's move on to the other results. We're going to rapid fire through these. We're going to play a game of good win, bad loss. Oklahoma, 5-2 over Texas Tech. The only reason, the argument you make for bad loss is that Texas Tech had Oklahoma on the ropes momentarily here.
Yeah. It's not a bad loss, but I mean, man, that was looking really close for a good amount of time. I think very similar to how UNC pulled out some of these matches. This match told me a lot about Oklahoma pulling this match out and actually running away with it at the end of it in a very tough Lubbock environment. So good win, Oklahoma.
Georgia Tech 5-2 over Clemson.
Good win over Georgia Tech. Good win for Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I agree. They're just rolling.
Clemson have been playing well.
Vandy 4-3 survival against South Carolina. And that's a match we had on our Cracked Racquets broadcast on Friday. Hamner Ackley doubles, which we said before the season. There's 3 points on the board there for South Carolina USC. The problem is finding everything else. And credit to Vanderbilt, they didn't allow South Carolina to find anything else.
Yeah, it's a great win for Vanderbilt. It's a bad loss for South Carolina.
I agree. It's tough. It's definitely tough for sure. That said, again, I think you look at this team, and certainly they've got a lot of options there. Again, going to keep moving on. We talked about it a little bit. Northwestern 4-1 over Nebraska. I just really like this Northwestern team.
Yeah, good win.
Yeah, for sure. We keep moving on. I apologize. My internet, not the greatest in this moment. Tennessee, 4-3 over Arkansas. This match was just excellent. Like, and it came, again, this was everything you want from conference play. Two teams who are very much in that 16-25 range. And on the right day, they're going to look like the 16th best team in the country. On the wrong day, they're going to look like 25. I mean, what a win for the Volunteers.
Yeah, 16-25 feels a little generous. But what a great win for Tennessee, who had been needing it. And we talked about how this Arkansas team was suddenly looking like the Tennessee team we thought, or actually it was Auburn. But anyways, these two teams have looked very similar throughout the season. Tennessee on the downswing, Arkansas on the upswing, and Tennessee really needed this win.
Yeah. That's the key is Tennessee. Yeah. Tennessee's like 10-6 at that point of the season. I think they're 11-6 now overall on the year. Let's see. Tennessee now overall here on the season. They are currently just outside that top 16 race, just outside the top 25 right now. Tennessee right now, 29 overall in the country. And you look for them again, Tennessee right now, perhaps as frisky of an 11-6 team as you are going to find. Again, we've got a bunch of results. I'm going to go off the board here in a second. Florida over Vanderbilt 6-1.
Good win.
Yeah. I agree. Good win. So again, I have a bunch I want to mention here. Unfortunately, not on the graphic there. I apologize, but I want to just go through some of them and you tell me good win, bad loss as we play through here. Ole Miss over Mississippi State 5-2.
Good win.
Alabama 4-3 over LSU.
Bad loss?
Bad loss simply because Maggie Kubit was there for like over and over and over again for this LSU team. I'm going to disagree, though. It was an outstanding win for Alabama, who freaking survived. And I'm telling you, if we restarted the season and you could guarantee me that LSU was going to be healthy from the start, they are not only finishing the season top 40, I think there's a top 25 team there that just, again, was ravaged by injuries. And so, unfortunately, they weren't able to do anything. We're going to keep moving on. And again, if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my phone for some of these results. I wanted to ask you about Maryland over Minnesota 4-3.
Good win.
Good win, but a bad loss for Minnesota probably eliminates them from the NCAA tournament. You just can't afford to lose any of those mid-tier matches. Penn State 4-1 over Michigan State.
It's a good,
I believe, on the road, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good win. I mean, this Penn State team just hasn't been able to get the wins. They've looked good in a lot of their losses. So that's a good win.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that's a very good win. And again, I think this Penn State team's sneaky good. Oklahoma State 4-2 over Texas Tech.
A good win. I mean, that was in Lubbock. So it's always, if you can escape there with a win, you feel good.
Yeah. All right. Oregon 4-3 over Utah.
Good win. I mean, this Oregon team is starting to look pretty good.
Combined with the good win 4-3 over BYU as well. I agree with you. I just think there's some sneaky good spots for this Oregon team, although they're a little bit more match calculus dependent. Miami, Florida, 6-1 over Colombia. The only reason this is on the board is because this was played at the Miami Open. It's a good win for all of us, right? To have that sort of exposure for college tennis.
Absolutely. Good win for college tennis. James Blake said he wants to do it every year, so I will hold him accountable to that. But really good experience for college tennis. Excited also, to see it.
James, do you want some match recommendations? Because we've got some for you, certainly. Like if you're looking for the match to play there next year, again, you do have my cell phone, James Blake. I want to be clear. We have texted before. So, I'm there should you need any advice. All right, last three, some non-Power 5 traditional aspect. UCSB 4-3 over Hawaii. That's a good win to me simply because UCSB can't afford to lose.
Agreed, but not a great scoreline.
Not a great scoreline, you're right, but a win nevertheless. It's like wins are wins, and you got to escape at this point. So that's why San Diego 4-3 over BYU is exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
And FIU 4-3 over Rice. Like, FIU might make the tournament. They're like right on that border.
Yeah, you know what's going to keep them afloat? They got the win over UCF early this season, right? Mm-hmm. And so UCF kind of turning the tide. That's going to help this FIU team a lot.
Very well said. So with that in mind, those are all of your results here on week 11. And again, I greatly appreciate all of you who are tolerating the lack of ideal audio quality. As again, we mentioned at the top, I am home in Michigan. Hadn't visited my parents since, I don't know, Christmas time, right around that end of the year. So needed that, 4 months. My dad was like, Alex, are you coming home or not? And then I walk in the door and he goes, Alex, are you shaving or not? And I was like, all right, I'll all these different things. That said, obviously with these results in mind, some shifts probably made to our Cracked Racquets top 16. So let's get to our rankings next. Let's talk about the top 16. Let's talk about the cross-offs. Let's talk about where things stand. We'll start at the top. North Carolina still number 1 in our poll. Oklahoma still number 2. But the big story, A&M all the way up to number 3, Jay. I mean, again, do you want to Venmo me? Like, what do we do here to acknowledge that I was correct in this? No, I'm just kidding. Your reaction. I mean, that's the big change, right? Because NC State 4, I think we should just leave Pepperdine at 5 and agree never to move them because, they'll lose to Cal and they'll lose to Ohio State, but then they'll go beat Stanford 4-0 and then they'll do this and they'll do that. And so despite the loss to Cal, they stay at number 5. That's our top 5 right now. North Carolina, Oklahoma, A&M, NC State, Pepperdine. After that, for Georgia, number 6, Texas, number 7, Ohio State, number 8. Your reaction to all the top 8?
It's the right top 8 with, I would swap 8 and 9. But yeah, I mean, the big story, right, is here Texas A&M creeping into the top 3, which, I had as well. And I think that makes sense given Texas A&M coming off the wins over Georgia, Auburn, NC State, suffering the 2-loss weekend. Who knows what to do with Pepperdine? They're somewhere in this top 8 on any given day. But yeah, these are the right top 8 and 9 through 16s. Which we'll get to in a second.
No, yeah. First of all, that's your way of saying my top 8 look different than your top 8, Alex. But
well, I always have to do the like juxtaposition. I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah.
trying to think. I think I did put A&M at 3 this week, and it's based on, again, on the premise of who has a stronger case to be above them right now. Like Texas A&M's 1 loss is to Cal. Well, okay, like Pepperdine's lost to Cal. NC State just lost to Duke in North Carolina and had a 2-loss weekend. Georgia lost to A&M. Texas is good, but like they haven't done anything remarkable of late. Yeah, Ohio State beat Pepperdine. They beat Michigan, but I don't think that's particularly remarkable. I don't think there's an argument for anyone but A&M to be at 3 right now, unless you want to keep NC State there and not penalize them for 2 4-3 losses.
Yeah, that's probably the only argument. I did, in fact, have A&M at 3.
You did?
I did.
Jay,
so
John, yeah, my birthday's not till October. That's very kind of you.
No tie breaks needed on this one.
Yeah, well, we did have tie breaks, by the way, and shout out to super producer Daniel Westoff. We had a tie at number 6 between Georgia and Texas, and super producer Daniel Westoff gives the edge to Georgia. We also had a tie at 16. And the edge, and so that gets me to 9 through 16. Now, number 9 on the strength of an amazing weekend. Obviously, Duke propelled back into the top 10. Number 10, University of Miami. Number 11, University of California, who after the loss to Arizona State had to take a drop despite the win over Pepperdine. Virginia still sitting comfortably at 12. They're kind of in a holding pattern right now, but they've got some big results, big matchups coming up. Oklahoma State 3. Auburn, Oklahoma State 3, Oklahoma State 13, Auburn 14, UCLA 15, and then Florida in at 16. And that was the second tie that super producer Daniel Westoff had to break. Florida into that number 16 spot above Stanford. I mean, again, directionally, I feel pretty good about that 9 through 16 range. Certainly, again, there are some other teams in the hunt still, but I feel good about this.
I feel great about this.
Yeah. I think we have the same top 16s, by the way.
Yeah, I think you
slightly different orders.
I did slot in Stanford at 16.
Gotcha. And I had UCLA at 15. So there we go. That's our difference between the two of us.
Well, no, I had UCLA at 15 too. I think you must have had Florida at 16.
I did have Florida at 16.
So yeah, that was the tie that Westoff broke.
Certainly. And I had Stanford at 18 this week. Where'd you have Florida this week?
I had
to check out that job form.
Week.
Yeah, or somewhere this. Oh, I mean, I could have tacked on college tennis ranks for you. Again,
I had Florida at 17.
All right, so
I'm fine with this. Yeah.
Yeah. So we flip flopped. All right, let's go through the cross offs once again. We're going to do this quickly. I don't think Florida's winning a national championship. You agree?
I do.
UCLA?
No. But they could. I mean,
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't cross them off just because, but we will. Auburn?
No.
I agree. Oklahoma State?
No.
I agree. Virginia?
No.
Are we sure Emma doesn't just have one of those streaks where the best player in the tournament leads her team to the title? No, 4 matches in a row. It's just
exactly. I'm going to keep repeating that.
Yeah. Cal?
No.
I'm not crossing them off. Westoff, don't you dare cross them off. They're too weird. They're too weird to cross off. They're too weird because, like, they could play. So you trust them to do
4 matches in a row?
No, but they could play the 3 best matches in a row and beat North Carolina and beat NC State and like beat 2 of the top 4 seeds, and then something funky happens on the other side, and now they're playing Pepperdine for the 4th time, and it's like. At that point, if Cal played Pepperdine for the 4th time, who freaking knows what's happening? So we're not crossing them off. Don't you dare, super producer Daniel Westoff. Leave them on the list. Miami. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, I can't say it.
No, say it. Say it.
No, I was going to say, when can we start putting money on this so I can make some money?
You're right. You should
on these cross-offs. Yeah.
Yeah. Cal 11, Miami 10. Cross off?
Yeah.
Can we cross them off, but put an asterisk and say 1 year away?
Sure.
Okay, that's fine. Duke?
They're a cross-off for me.
My show. Duke stays. No, I'm just kidding. Our show. That was rude. I feel bad for even saying that out loud as an attempted joke. It is our show. We're keeping one of Cal and Duke. How about that? This is called compromise, my friend. Which one do you want to keep?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I would keep Duke.
Okay, fine. Cal gone. We're going to keep Duke then. That's fine with me. I can live with that. That's
just the Drummy, Beck, Chen trio.
That nucleus, I agree,
is more interesting than anything that Cal has.
It's too much to deny. Cal's another one of those teams. Put an asterisk. They're a year away. Ohio State, we crossed off before. Yeah, I think we can still. Yeah, that's fine. We're going to cross them off still. I'm not willing to cross off any of our top 7. Texas, Georgia would be the 2 to consider from, and maybe NC State.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if my hand was forced,
I want you to grade as if you are back at the University of Virginia, my friend. Professor's talking to you. It's the honors college, Jay. Give it to us.
Georgia, I don't think is happening. I just don't trust. I think the thing is you need to have faith that the 2 freshmen deliver back to back to back, which they very well could. The concern for the Georgia team has been, while the freshmen deliver, the seniors are not always delivering. Yeah. So you get a bad day from one of those freshmen. It's very similar to what we saw with Arizona State and Stanford. You got a bad day from Connie Ma, the team loses. You get a bad day from Vid Minoma and Riasco. That team is not winning a national championship.
No, I think that's a tough assessment, but not entirely unfair. And again, to ask freshmen do it 4 matches in a row in May is the toughest question to ask any freshman. Dindaloo, the Yankee, says cross off Georgia. I really like Dindaloo. He's been a rabid fan now for the past few weeks. But I love you, Dindaloo. I'm not willing to do it. Now, at the same time, can we uncross everything super producer Daniel Westoff momentarily? Because I want to do one more thing to this. Ooh. I want to go tiers for you here. Let's do tiers because we keep referring to it. Top tier right now. National championship contenders, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. North Carolina's in tier 1. I think Oklahoma has to be in tier 1 as well. Would you throw A&M in tier 1, or would you say that's the start of tier 2?
Yeah, I mean, A&M has to be tier 2 because we're basing that tier 1 off of like the
past performance and the
past performance.
Yeah, 100%,
exactly. And
100%.
Then we just have not seen A&M get those victories. And unfortunately for them, they're not going to have them. So they will stay tier 2 until they win the title.
Okay. Tier 2, A&M.
Yes.
Yes. NC State.
Yes.
Pepperdine.
Yes.
Tier 2, but they're the most volatile of all of the teams. Georgia.
I think there's a break here.
Yeah,
I think there's a break.
Well, I think Texas should be in tier 2 just because like it's the advanced version of Drummy Beck Chen is what they have in Stearns and everything, and just like and pieces. It's just like it's interesting. I was gonna say Stearns, Shabatapan, and Collins and Rapaloo, but it's like, 2 of those 4 players are going to deliver in every match, you feel like. And it's very frequently it's Stearns and one of the other 3. I would say Texas is the end of tier 2.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. And then tier 3 would be Ohio State downwards. And, at that point, you're playing a different game.
And you're putting Georgia there, or you're keeping Georgia?
I'm keeping Georgia in tier 2 because the right version of them, Kopic, Villanueva, again, I feel like those are 2 points on the board against anyone. And then it's finding 2 more, and there's just a lot of you feel favorable about a bunch of their matchups, whether it's obviously Riasco. You feel like you're going to get one of Riasco and Ma. They're pretty solid in doubles. They're just still somehow untested. And so, yeah, that would be where I start tier 3. But with that said, again, those are our updated rankings. And obviously you can find those rankings here on this show. You'll be able to find the graphic on our Cracked Racquets social media. To any coaches, SIDs listening, if you want to make my day, more importantly, you want to make super producer Daniel Westoff or Cracked Racquets CEO Dalton Thieneman's day, when you make your graphic saying, hey, we're 2 in the ITA poll, 4 in the USTA Tennis Channel poll. Do you want to throw in a Cracked Racquets poll update as well, folks? We're the 3rd poll. We're the other data point out there. And I know A&M, you're number 3 in the Cracked Racquets poll. You're not going to be number 3 in the other polls. I'm just saying there's the low-hanging fruit for you. And I've been saying that about Oklahoma, I think, the entire time. We've had you 2 the whole time. Ignore the ITA rankings. But with that said, that's where our Cracked Racquets rankings stand heading into next week. With that in mind, let's look at the week ahead, Jay. Look at the matches we have. And I have fully adopted here's the headliners, here's the undercards in conference play. I just really like that framing of the topics. But again, let's move on here to the week ahead. And I like that it's in bracket form here, super producer Daniel Westoff. This is a very cool graphic that you have made here today. Let's just go through all of them, left to right. Battle for LA, UCLA, USC. What are you looking for?
So it's not UCLA.
Oh, no, it's not.
USC.
I was going to say it's not USC.
Yeah, it's Pepperdine. And so that's
not a battle for LA. Malibu's not Los Angeles.
I think it's in LA County.
No, but Malibu is its own subsection. You threw me off here, Jay. You're killing me.
All right. Well, the reason I said battle for LA because they've both beaten USC.
Yeah.
Right. So this is like the battle for number one. And look, we just talked about we haven't learned a lot about the UCLA team. Like now's our chance. They play midweek tomorrow. So next week we'll actually know, have a lot more data points on this UCLA team. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's a great call. Any projection?
I'm going Pepperdine. I think the strength, I mean, you would think the strength of that Pepperdine lineup at the bottom should win this match. Who knows?
Yeah, that's the matchup of volatility here this weekend. All right, exactly. Again, next up, and I apologize, you see me looking at the screen. That's so I can see Jay and obviously see some of these matchups. We've got the Big Ten battle of the last undefeated teams. Northwestern taking on Ohio State. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think Ohio State wins this match, but it's going to be interesting. I think this will tell us how good Northwestern is, right? They've had these close matches with the rest of the Big Ten. It's a good opportunity for them to test Ohio State. And also, look, again, without Dorme, like Ohio State feels vulnerable with a different doubles lineup. So I'm interested to see how this one plays out.
Yeah, well said. All right, again, want to keep moving on. ACC, UVA, that little, holding pattern is over. They get Wake Forest. They get NC State at home. Now, Emma Navarro is currently competing in the Charleston 250. She's got Ons Jabeur tomorrow. If she wins that match, she shouldn't be playing in either of these dual matches because, again, at that point, you're beating a top 10 player in the world, and she got a good win over Madison Brangle today. I do think this is Emma Navarro's final go-round for the Cavaliers this season because I just think the pro results are now there. That said, I mean, they need her this weekend, I think, in both matches.
Yeah, they definitely need her this weekend. But the Navarro conversation, that's an off-season topic.
Yeah, we'll say that for the award show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, look, this is a great one with NC State. UVA has been in the holding pattern. They were injured against Duke and UNC, so they should be healthy, assuming Navarro's there as well. This is a match that UVA needs to win if they want to get out of that kind of like 13, 14, 15 ranking range. And again, it's a good test against Wake Forest, who's also looking for a win on the road. So really interested to see this. And I'm curious to see how Duke follows this weekend up, right? They had that bad weekend in Florida, great weekend in North Carolina. Now they face Georgia Tech. We'll see what Duke shows up there.
Yeah, it's, again, going to be a really fun weekend of action as we move on. SEC, Florida, top 16 push they're trying to make as they take on Auburn. I think we can say it. The winner of this match probably clinches a top 16 seed. For Auburn, coming off of the tough result against A&M, they just kind of want to remind everyone, no, we are top 16 good. We are in the mix for this postseason. It's at Auburn. This is a really fun match. What are you watching for?
Yeah, I'm curious to see how Florida's depth does against Auburn's depth, who has been strong this season. They were outclassed by A&M, but that's the main thing I'm looking for here. I think, look, Florida, we haven't heard much of really from since indoors, where they had some struggles. They're going to want to win this match to tell people that they're still in the SEC hunt, and this is a must win if they want a top 16 seed.
Yeah, and it's almost a must-win for Auburn against South Carolina this weekend as well. As this South Carolina team, after losing that match to Vanderbilt, a Vanderbilt team that has struggled in SEC conference play, South Carolina's hungry. They're a little bit desperate. They've got the firepower. Ackley and Hamner will be the favorites against Auburn. And so, again, any match you go in where you feel like we can sweep the top two, you feel like you got a shot in. So that is a fascinating undercard. And, of course, we'll have all Friday's SEC action covered for you, which you can find on all of the team websites. As we keep moving here, Big 12. Can Iowa State keep making its history? Iowa State, big matchup here this weekend. Of course, you've also got Oklahoma taking on Oklahoma State. I think we all agree that's the matchup we've been waiting for. Coach Cohen versus Coach Young. That's going to be extraordinarily fun.
I don't think that happens this weekend.
That's not this weekend. Is that Iowa State versus Oklahoma?
Does the Oklahoma swing.
Okay, I apologize a little bit. They've got the Oklahoma swing here. I see. I read that incorrectly. That's on me. I see the comma now after Oklahoma super producer Daniel Westoff. So that's my bad. I was like, that headline makes no sense. So thank you, Jay. And leave that in. Again, if we weren't live, that would have been edited out, but we can leave it in now. So Iowa State's got the Oklahoma swing. That's fascinating. Baylor's got the Kansas teams coming to town. Yep. Kansas at Baylor, Kansas State at Baylor as well. It's a fun weekend of Big 12 play.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, Iowa State underwhelmed in their Texas swing when they did Texas and Baylor. maybe they can carry the momentum that they gained against Kansas and maybe knock off one of these two teams, which would be a program first.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. And again, certainly one win over those teams. I mean, we'll start talking about, again, how dangerous this Iowa State team is come postseason time. All right, Pac-12, we talked about a little bit. How does Washington fare thus far? And certainly Washington, I think, they've got Stanford and Cal this weekend. And so that's going to be some fun matchups. You've got, Arkansas at Tennessee and Georgia, Duke at NC State, or I think that happened last week. So I think we might, I was going to say Arkansas played Tennessee and Georgia. So that graphic, a little bit old. I apologize for that fact. Again, a little bit all over the place here. I'm just going to blame my internet connection and the fact that we've hit the hour and a half mark of the show. Bubble watch, non-power 5, UCF on the road, SMU, Tulsa, USC at San Diego as well. That USC match is fascinating.
Yeah, all of these matches really stood out to me for teams trying to make the NCAA tournament, right? SMU, Tulsa, if either one of these get a win over UCF, they're then in the mix for top 40, or in SMU's case, probably solidifies their top 40 ranking. And USC, San Diego, yeah, if San Diego gets a win there, they solidify their top 40 ranking. That's going to be a very fascinating matchup. Good matches at the top of the top of the lineup. Fascinating to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, 100%. And so again, I think it's going to be a really fun weekend of action across the country. And certainly, as always, we are excited to have some of that action for you here at Crack Racquets as we will continue our coverage as we have each and every weekend of the SEC and Big Ten tournaments. Let's go now, if we can, super producer Daniel Westoff, show everyone what we've got on Friday in the SEC. And certainly it is always fun to have the chance to call some of these matches. But Tennessee against Vanderbilt, in-state rivalry. Certainly Vanderbilt, every match they play is a de facto elimination match at this point, as they are right on the border of NCAA contention. Meanwhile, Tennessee would like to prove to everyone, hey, we may be boxed out of the top 16. Nevertheless, we are still a top 16 team. None of you will want to face us in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Of course, again, want to focus on the women's matches we have here. Georgia taking on Kentucky. LSU versus A&M, I think, is a sneaky fun match that if A&M comes out asleep, LSU will do some damage against that lineup. Certainly Florida, Alabama, fun. Mississippi State against Arkansas. Mississippi State's played everyone close. South Carolina, Auburn, that Friday women's match of the SEC Friday card. Which you like most, Jay? Tennessee Vandy is juicy.
Yeah, Tennessee Vandy. I also am curious about LSU, Texas A&M, right? I mean, LSU is just going to come out swinging. That one's interesting. And there's some men's matches that are super interesting as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun. I mean, Kentucky, Tennessee, hello, especially if there's no Johannes Monday, and especially for a Kentucky team coming off of a loss against South Carolina 4-3 this past weekend. Yeah, it's going to be a really fun Friday. Now let's transition to Sunday, where, of course, we will have our Big Ten broadcast. This available on our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. Relatively calm day of action, I would say, across the board. And in fact, one could argue that Wisconsin-Illinois men's match at 1 p.m. is unequivocally your most interesting match of the day.
I think of this list, it absolutely is.
Yeah. Although Penn State versus Illinois on the women's side is pretty good at noon as well. Like, again, because Penn State is just better than their ranking indicates, they could go, again, and that's a road match for Illinois. The Illini could 100% lose that match on the road.
Yeah, they definitely could. It's a dangerous match.
No, it's fun. And again, we will have all this Big Ten coverage for you on Sunday on our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. We will have all of our SEC coverage for you on Friday. That coverage found on each and every one of the team websites. With all of that said, Jay, again, another week of college tennis in the book. A huge thank you, to our friends at SwingVision for their continued support of this show. And again, artificial intelligence for your tennis. If you want to learn more about the latest innovations happening, contact our friends at SwingVision today, or click on the link in the description to this podcast. Use the promo code CRACK20 on sign up. Of course, email sales@uniquesports.com today to join the Turner family. And I'm talking to you, every college coach, and I know there are some of you who tune into this show every week. Why not just get a Turner sponsorship for your group? Don't worry about the balls, the grips anymore. You're taken care of the rest of the way. Contact Turner today by emailing sales@uniquesports.com. Let them know that we here at Cracked Racquets sent you as well. With that in mind, any final thoughts, Jay, before we wrap today's show?
I echo your dad's question. Will you be shaving the beard?
Do I need to?
Well, you said you were heading to Michigan tomorrow.
No, I'm in Michigan right now. I'm here. Let me be clear.
No, I know. Right, aren't you going?
The University of Michigan. I see what you're saying. To go see the team, I think I'm going to shave a mutton chop or like something funky. Maybe I'll go just chin for them or like just mustache because they earned the reward, right? After how strong of a start they've had.
I was going to say, and then he was never asked back again.
You know what the problem is? When you walk into the Varsity Tennis Center, and I think we've mentioned this before, but the very first thing you see is the trophy case and the newest trophy and the latest addition to the group. Well, I guess they have the Big Ten title trophy from last year, but right next to that is our Club Tennis National Championship. And by the way, 4 days from now, what's today, the 5th, 1 week from today, Jay, I'm glad you brought this up, is the 5-year anniversary of our Club Tennis National Championship. That it's been 5 years, that means it's about the 5-year anniversary of this podcast as well, because the hubris we got from that led to us founding this show. I mean, yeah, I will be shaving. To answer your question, there's some other things whatever. My dad was like, if you want anything from me this trip, 2 things, shave, haircut. And so, yes, the hairs are going to be cut. I'm going to be looking suave, sophisticated come the SEC broadcast tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to get a haircut, but I will shave my face with that in mind, because that's the content listeners were looking for. Let's do a Twitter poll. Should I shave the beard or should I grow it out for the rest of the season? You can message me at AL Gruskin. Yeah, it would get nasty. With that said, Jay, any final thoughts? Other than don't grow the beard?
I mean, we can't be having Chris's hair on one hand and your beard on the other. It's just too much. I got to see you guys in Illinois. So no final thoughts. I'm looking forward to another week of action.
Did you book your flight to Champaign already?
Flight's booked. Hotel's booked.
Oh, Jay, I forgot you're like a real human and I'm just a fake one. I love it. With that in mind, of course, a huge shout out to the man who always does keep me in check, super producer Daniel Westoff on the 1s and 2s. What did I say? Friday, not tomorrow, too. Friday for the SEC coverage. I appreciate that. Super producer Daniel Westoff. That coverage starts Friday, not tomorrow. And again, our Big Ten coverage going to be on Sunday. And a huge thank you to super producer Daniel Westoff, who makes all of our Cracked Racquets content possible. With that said, for the fantastic John J. Parsons, our super producer Daniel Westoff, our friends at SwingVision and Turn On, from all of us here at both Cracked Racquets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. Jay, what do we tell our listeners?
Hey, great shot.
And we will see you all Thursday night to talk about the men. Thanks, everyone.